Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us for Wave News Extra. I'm Jose Sosaya here in the Wave Now studio as we start this live stream at this hour here on the Wave Now app and on our social media to unpack the stories of the day, at least through this channel, and break that down with you, including some exclusive bits of sound and video that we want to share with you on our online audience. We also know right now on the Wave main channel, since it is our NBC affiliate, that Wicked is playing live. So for those of you joining in, appreciate you, however you're wanting to switch off on that. We're probably going to go on a little bit late so the whole movie can play tonight for Wave News at 11. So hope you stick around a little later before you hit, go to bed and check in on those latest original reports with us. Part of that is an update that officials right now, when it comes to the UPS deadly plane crash, they're just asking businesses, families nearby just to be patient. They're working to reopen the area where UPS flight 2976 crashed, destroying those electric and gas lines. So businesses say they're starting to feel this impact of not being able to go back for 2 weeks with no end in sight. Grade Lane remains blocked off to traffic after the plane crash. Down the road from there is Quantum Inc., one of many businesses impacted and one we've checked in with throughout the process, of course, of the tragedy. The president of the company telling us he got word from LMPD this morning it may take at least 8 months before they are able to go fully back into their own building again. They've been able to go back for a couple of hours a few times for now just to collect some equipment. And this is our view from inside, what we were able to walk through from the warehouse in Bullitt County where Quantum Inc. stores its materials. And the company president telling us he is worried, though, about the future of his respective business.
Yeah, it's going to be nearly impossible for us and others to sustain the way that we're doing things right now. I think what we've been able to accomplish has gotten us through a solid 2 weeks, but the backlog continues to grow. The demand continues to grow. The speed of which we need to meet demand continues to grow, and that's not going to be sustainable, certainly not for 8 months to a year.
And now the company at this point says it's ready to lose about $1 million in business in the next 2 weeks. Quantum Inc. also has many workers in the area when the plane crashed, many of them still dealing with their own trauma of the day while also facing this now employment uncertainty. So there's one perspective of just the footprint of the impact from the deadly UPS plane crash. Another is what MSD crews are doing right now, and that is dealing with some of the contamination and runoff from the crash. A team of agencies from UPS, LG&E, Louisville Water, many other groups on site still working around the clock. They're telling us today about 95% of the materials spilled during the crash, they have collected them. And there have been more than 900,000 gallons of oily liquids that have been collected by the contractor involved, at least per MSD's Chief of Government and Public Affairs, Wes Sidner.
Once samples start to come back from the contractor, us, and the state Energy and Environment Cabinet and US EPA will review and monitor that sampling as it comes in, and those results are analyzed. And that will help us determine, all of us collaboratively determine when different parts of the cleanup can be demobilized.
Now, MSD says there's been no impact on folks' water supply. I do want to play a longer clip that our Julia Richardson had in her interview with Wes Sidner to preview for you what's going to come up tonight on Wave News at 11. Here's a longer piece of MSD's update on the work that they're actively doing.
Next steps to cleanup. Well, we're experiencing some of this today, just working in, and these crews, and to their benefit, have been working around the clock. And there's been a team of agencies and people from UPS to emergency management to MSD, LG&E, Louisville Water, and many others that have been on site and working around the clock. So when weather starts to do, different things, rain, that creates a challenge that we have to work through. But the benefit of the rain is that it will help flush some of these contaminants to points where they can be collected and removed. So, it's, I won't say the most challenging piece is behind us, but, as weather gets colder, that creates challenges for workers and people responding.
How long will this continue out here in the other two locations?
I would expect to have some sort of containment on these sites for the next couple of months. That is probably out of abundance of caution, but I would expect to see booms across these creeks and these locations for at least a few more weeks.
What would you say is the most difficult part moving forward?
The most difficult part moving forward, as far as the environmental cleanup, making sure that I think a lot of that will depend on what the sampling shows us when we see that, and that will help us determine, okay, where are our challenges, and where does the contracting team need to dedicate resources. But really, until we see some of those results, it's we're sort of in a wait and see mode until that happens.
What things that you're looking for to get the results?
So, obviously, when you have the situation with the crash, you had the materials that were used to put those fires out. You had an oil recycling facility that had some damage and had some leaks, and so those types of constituents. And then you had the site that the crash occurred. There are potentially metals and things like that. And, so there's a whole list of items and constituents that we are looking at and reviewing. A lot of that might be over the top, but there's a pretty expansive list of pollutants that we're looking for.
But nothing that's wrong with process sampling is something to be concerned about, anything to make note of?
I don't think anything that people need to make note of, because everything is being captured and contained. So again, can't speak to what's in those flows that are being captured until we see sampling. But as of right now, there's nothing that we feel to be, should be concerned about. There is still an advisory in place, just because we don't know a lot of things that are in these waters. That advisory is in place to not make contact, not have your pets make contact to waterways. But as soon as that, we feel comfortable that things are back to previous conditions, we'll let people know.
And so that was MSD's update tonight. Our Julie Richardson going to break down much more of their walk through this particular part of the Southern Ditch. So hope you join us a little later tonight on Wave News at 11. Also, some new developments in a double murder at a Kroger that happened over Derby weekend. LMPD says they've now made an arrest in this case of 28-year-old Reggie Rahim. He was taken into custody on 2 counts of murder relating to what happened on May 3rd at this Kroger on West Broadway. 3 people were shot. 2 died at the hospital. Rahim is in custody at our last check at Metro Corrections, facing those murder charges. In more updates this may be, I'll skip ahead to the next story here. Okay. Today marks 9 years since Tommy Ballard was shot and killed while hunting with his grandson. And you're maybe familiar with all of our coverage with the Crystal Rogers case. But Tommy, Crystal's father, was shot in the chest during an early morning hunting trip on his family property on this very day back in 2016. Investigators say they determined Tommy died pretty much instantly. His death classified a homicide, but never solved. Tommy is, again, Crystal Rogers' father. Her own body has also never been found. 3 men are currently serving their respective prison sentences for their role in Rogers' presumed murder. The FBI is still offering up to $10,000 for any information leading to an ID arrest and conviction of anybody who would be responsible for Tommy Ballard's murder in this case. In news around Indiana, around 300 National Guard soldiers from Indiana are heading to D.C. It's to support a federal mission that starts in December, as the government puts it, to help increase safety in the nation's capital. Indiana's National Guardsmen are going to be replacing soldiers and airmen from other states who have been assigned there since August. And to fully prepare for the mission, soldiers are going to be training at Camp Atterbury. Their mission is expected to last no longer than 4 months. And today, Governor Braun ordered flags to be flown at half-staff to honor a Indiana National Guardsman who died in this crash that happened last Friday on I-65. A spokesperson with the National Guard says the troops were heading to Camp Atterbury for drill weekend. This is a picture of Sergeant Terry Fry. He died in the crash after the Humvee he was riding in flipped. Fry and 3 other guardsmen were thrown off and from the vehicle. Fry served in the Indiana National Guard since March of 2020, earning the National Defense Service Medal and the Army Service Ribbon during his 5 years of service. Flags will be flown at half-staff starting at sunrise through tomorrow until sunset this Friday for Fry's funeral. Now, the procession route we've learned for this service for him is going to start at Frankfort First Church of the Nazarene and end at Bunnell Cemetery northwest of Frankfort. Anyone wishing to pay their respects is asked to line up along the procession route by 12:15 this Friday, November 21st. Going back here into the studio, as we do have more Wave News Extra for you tonight. Part of it is a conversation I want to share with you with our reporter Logan Perrone on a project to offer veterans in our community a place to stay, this kind of transitional housing to find stability and then, that independence for whatever's next in their chapter of life after service and after needing this kind of support. But we're going to explain why in this part down Dixie Highway, there's some concern from neighbors as far as like the geographic logistics of the parcel that Metro and the VOA as partners want to develop these 25 tiny homes in. So we're going to talk about that, the timeline, just how fast this all could play out. So we're going to share that with you after this commercial break here on Wave News Extra. Folks, thanks for sticking with us here on Wave News Extra. Twofer, because we have our Wave News reporter Logan Perrone joining us again for a second day in a row, but always happy to have Logan. The stories can change by the day, and in this case, Logan, it is a long-standing issue. If you look at just the overall conversation of not just housing, but affordable housing, and for veterans in particular, who are a vulnerable population when it comes to this, but you wanted to look into this idea for a new community. It's, in a pretty busy, active part of Jefferson County, lots happening around this particular intersection, which you'll walk us through. Yeah. But you also, we're talking to the folks who kind of are getting wind that they want to make this project a reality, understanding the geography of what's going to be involved. And there's going to be a lot to do to make this happen. But if you want to walk us through just where we're going and what this all entails.
Yeah, well, let me start with just how we came across the story. So first and foremost, it was actually posted in the IADH, the I Am Dixie Highway Facebook group. So again, when you guys got story ideas, when you got things that you want to know about, Facebook's a good place. Reach out to us as well. But this is where that really came, it was actually Dawn G. She's the one that pointed it out to our reporters here. So basically the premise of this is there is a project that, people were like, hey, we don't know much about it. So I decided to dig in and say, hey, what is this? And so what it is it's a veterans community. It's going to be around Dixie Highway, Stone Street Road. And for those of you that don't know where it is, that's in Valley Station. It's not that far from Waverly Hill. And really what it's going to be at the basis of this, the very basics, it's 25 cottage style homes, a common space for the veterans. And then there's going to be some green space for them, walking paths, nature preserves, things like that they're able to utilize. So if we pause this here, this is the area where it's going to go. Dixie Highway off to the left, and then Stone Street again to its south. If you guys are trying to get a picture of where that is, there's a Scooters, the Louisville Overstock Warehouse. It's down by that intersection in Valley Station. Again, we're talking deep down Dixie Highway if you're heading south. Now, top right of your screen there is a neighborhood, Timothy Hills, and that's where we went today, because when I was digging through some of the proceedings, some of the documents that have been filed, and again, they're all publicly available for you folks. It was the people in that neighborhood who had signed up to attend, possibly speak at these public meetings that happened earlier in the year. And what I found speaking to them is, look, no one's got a problem with bringing veteran services to the community. Even one of the folks I spoke with today is a Marine veteran herself. The issue becomes the logistics of the property in question. So if you guys are getting familiar with it or you're not, I'm going to explain it to you really quick. There is a little tiny bit of area down at the bottom closer to Dixie Highway where this is realistically feasible. This makes sense. What you don't see in these renderings is the giant hill that exists on this property and takes up a
which you
vast
can actually
point
bring up if we
of
kind of skip
property.
ahead to just this view of the map and perhaps what it can't reflect for us, at least in this like flat image, Logan, is that, and especially for folks who are very familiar with this cross street, Dixie and Stone Street, that is a pretty steep way up if you're trying to get to the top of where the trees are.
If you're looking at some of the documents,
Sure,
you can see that at some points on that hill, we're talking a 30% grade. And I know for folks at home, that's not necessarily something that they fully can wrap your head around. 30 degrees is, close to this. We're talking, it's getting steep. This is not something that like if I was a little kid, actually I still am a little kid, but this is something I'd want to go sledding down if it snowed, because I'm going to pick up speed and it's fast.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of what we see also in a lot of the paperwork that's filed, and I didn't bother putting images of that because they were going to be very boring. But there's a lot of areas marked in the western half of this property. I guess technically the eastern half. I apologize.
Sure.
They look and are marked out as unstable, soft ground. I mean, I was just talking to a homeowner who's been there 35 years. He goes, look, and again, I'm just taking his word for this here, but he's like, you got to imagine this has been a hill. It's been undeveloped. It's been untouched. You have trees that have died over the years, blah, 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 blah. The soil is going to be rich, but it's going to be soft. And so that makes it hard for development. Now, this property also has this unique position where Dixie Highway isn't actually what's directly to its west. There's a little bit of strip there.
And I know the mouse is hard to point it out, but you can see these kind of dotted points, and this is the railroad
That
coming.
is the railroad.
So basically parallel.
It runs parallel with Dixie Highway.
Yeah.
And so the biggest concern I heard was about the utilities and sewer systems here on this property, because first and foremost, MSD was told that they cannot go underneath the train tracks. And that was coming from the folks we spoke to who were at these meetings. There's been several of them in the process of getting this development approved. But they're saying to me, look, we've been told MSD is not allowed to go underneath these this railroad. And so what you have to do is, okay, well, where then can they connect to the sewer if they can't go to Dixie Highway? And the other option is up the hill. And so the biggest concern that I get then from the homeowners who have easements on the back end of their property is to bring this thing to life. They have to pump these sewers up the hill. I couldn't give you a necessary estimate, but it's
still
again,
a climb up to the top.
It's a climb up to the top. And as part of that, you're looking at a lot of neighbors getting their easement dug up to bring in sewer lines to connect to their own sewers. That runs the risk of, backlogs in their own systems, possibly in their own yards. And again,
We
This
could
is-
visualize too here,
Yeah.
Logan. I guess it'd be, maybe this row of homes and just where the tree cover kind of starts. And and I wish, it's unfortunate with this flat image, you just can't see just the sharp climb up, but just understanding that they'd be the first, I guess, in this drawing or, this rendering to say like, yeah, if they think this is where they're going to have to start running the sewer systems, just to be able to provide utilities for the folks, the veterans who want to live up here.
Well, I'm talking not only in the property, but it would be outside the black lines there onto the adjacent properties. Because again, you got to imagine they have to run it in a way that they can access the sewer that's on their street. And so, yes, that's why the easement's there. That's why these plans exist. But it's, you have to think from a homeowner's perspective there. Dixie Highway is right there. All they got to do is tunnel underneath the railroad and boom, you're connected to industrial grade sewers with everything along that stretch. I mean, this is industrial. There's food, there's retail, there's heavy traffic. I mean, it just makes sense from a where it is perspective to put it there. But again, can't go underneath the railroad, so you got to go up the hill. So that's one of the things. Obviously, anytime you build a development like this, there's always the concerns for possibility of bringing, possible squatters, homelessness, especially with a wooded area that's got trails and everything. So, that was one concern that I heard. And another is, whether or not actually, and this goes beyond the geography, but, whether or not it's actually going to be exclusively for veterans. And so I heard from the Veterans of America, Volunteers of America, they said that as far as veterans go, it's designed for veterans. And I said, look, I heard from the former Marine that we talked to. She says that when VOA was at the meeting, they can't guarantee that veterans are going to make up all 25 units. And so, when I asked VOA that, I still haven't heard back. So it's still unclear to us if it's just for veterans. And the Marine said, look, I've been in this situation before. I know what these people need. They need structure. They need community, people that understand, and having people that aren't veterans, could delay some progress, whether that's they're working with addiction, whether they're working with any sort of other struggle. Having that, she worries, could
just perhaps it's that gap of experience, of shared experience together.
Yeah, it could hurt. What's ultimately the goal here is to put them, put a veteran in a home, get them on stable ground, and then send them off to wherever their next stop may be.
But to reintegrate to wherever that community is out there for them independently. So I'm sure, there's so much to get here. What's something you're looking at in the short term, because the timeline for this, Logan, what's something you're keeping your eyes on?
So I'm keeping my eyes on the funding, and that's an interesting thing to say, okay, hey, in the short term, obviously this is a good project to have. Like I said, I hadn't encountered anyone that said otherwise in my reporting. The question was about the money because, some of that was unclear. So I got some clarity from the Metro today on exactly who's paying what, who has paid what. And so this project was allocated in 2022.
So there's been some times for at least this
isn't out of the blue.
Yes, this
isn't out of the blue. COVID relief money was allocated to this project, not to the purchase of the land, but to the project. And we're talking $10 million. And what that will do, the Metro is leasing out the land to the Volunteers of America. They will use that $10 million to cover the majority of the development costs. They also spent in 2023, once this was approved and, they allocated the money for it, they spent the $400,000 on the land itself. The land itself, I also wanted to check because, I had heard concerns that the millions of dollars were spent on the land. That's not correct. What is correct is they spent $400,000 on the land. The land's valued at $408,000. So they're in the ballpark there. And then again, the $10 million are going to develop this for VOA, for the veterans, build the houses.
I'm sure it's programs, operations,
the little road that they're going to need to build to get back in there, probably bring in MSD, LG&E service to the property. And then, of course, you got to wonder, okay, well then what happens? Well, obviously VOA leases it. They're on a 20-year lease. But once the development and the construction of the project is over, that land is actually going to be transferred to VOA. And of course, from there, they'll be on the hook for the rest of the costs.
Okay, well, certainly a very fascinating discovery as far as, connecting the dots, Logan, and then, talking to neighbors, checking in with Metro as far as, what all has been, purchased, what seems to be on solid ground. As far as what is next, I don't know if anybody with VOA or Metro explained to you or were able to explain what is like the very next couple steps they do have on their agenda.
Right now, they are in the design phase. And again, what you saw with those renderings are just renderings. There's ones with different colors. But the ultimate design, the layout, what it does is, again, it puts 25 houses, that shared common space on the west side of the property, and about 300 feet, including that hill, of green space, which can, be utilized for walking trails. But they're going to keep, or at least try to keep, the natural tree buffer. They hope to break ground spring of 2026. All things going according to plan. And, as of right now, it looks like this thing is full steam ahead.
All right. Well, I can't imagine that we won't not be checking in on its progress, perhaps finding out just among the first class of tenants, let's say, for the folks in the homes that they're able to bring in, the services they provide, and perhaps the community's response as they sort of see this come to fruition, or at least see the once it's almost ready to open, will be something fascinating to see. And as a reminder, Logan's conversations, with those neighbors and all the other sourcing that he's done is living online in your report, Logan. So let folks know where they can reach out to you. Obviously, your work published on wave3.com and on your different social media feeds, of course, that you're sharing information that way, and then people can connect with you there as well.
Yeah. So Facebook is Logan Wave 3. That is the same for my X, formerly Twitter handle. And of course, always love getting emails, logan.perrone@wave3.com. And again, as I mentioned yesterday, notoriously on my phone. So if you message me, I am going to see it. So story ideas, updates, good things that happen, folks, please send them to me, because, we go into these pitch meetings in the morning and sometimes I go, I don't have anything. I like to have things, so message me, folks. Come on.
Well, it's about just continuing the conversation at that point. It's just like it's a continuous discussion.
Yes.
It's it can be more than the phone call and texting sometimes, but that's always good to check sources, so.
Yeah, just message me, folks. Y'all know where to find me.
All right. Logan, always good to have you here in the Wave Now studio for Wave News Extra. And we always love having Logan on to unpack one of, the more important stories. These are things happening in our community we do want to discuss and see where that takes us, for the benefit of the community, as it were. We're going to take a quick break and be right back with a bunch more of tonight's Wave News Extra after this. All right, folks, welcome back into the Wave Now studio, and appreciate our Logan Perrone spending some time with us to break down his reporting tonight. I want to share some more stories with you as we're hitting this 8:35 mark on Wednesday. Kentucky School Report Card. It was released parents look forward to that just to corroborate for their own kids' cards to see how their academic progress is doing. And this is a sort of a community check for the Commonwealth of how schools are doing, so parents can learn how their child's schools are performing. JCPS's graduation rate increased to a little more than 89%. New data showing how kids are also learning post-pandemic. Wave News reporter Marissa Burke breaks down more from this year's report card.
3 years ago, the state changed its grading system for this test, so we're finally getting to follow the data and understand students' growth. In 2022, JCPS noted that their elementary students were showing signs of long-term learning impacts from the pandemic. The Kentucky Commissioner of Education, Robbie Fletcher, says they're seeing a similar trend across the state, but he's cautious about comparing the old reports. Years later, some of these kids are now middle schoolers, and this year's report shows their scores increased tremendously. JCPS Superintendent Dr. Brian Yearwood says that middle schoolers showed the strongest gains across all subjects. Overall, the district is celebrating student success.
The biggest positive is that we are maintaining in many areas, and we're showing promise and growth in other areas. For example, in our science area, my gosh, across the board, we're seeing definite improvements in that area. In the area of math, we are seeing many positive results in that area.
Last year's report told us that reading scores had dropped and math scores increased in JCPS. This year, things are improving. One area of improvement for the district is getting 41 schools out of CSI status. That stands for Comprehensive Support and Improvement. It means that these schools are ranked in the bottom 5% of the entire state. And you can review this data for yourself. We have a link to the report card on our website, wave3.com. Marissa Burke, Wave News.
Now, in addition to tracking the students' academic growth, the Kentucky School Report Card also measures school safety. And some of the data shows that JCPS ranks above the state with students who have behavior events that are tracked and recorded. We have reported, of course, on all the changes JCPS made at their schools to tackle some of the safety concerns, like adding weapons detection systems. Superintendent Dr. Brian Yearwood says they are addressing the problem and that, therefore, they are seeing some fewer incidents.
We were getting reports from our chief and looking at our data, and there has been a decrease at this point. When we compared where we are today versus last year, we are seeing a decrease in behaviors in discipline and in various areas that, again, were concerning to us. So it's happening. And I'm sure by the end of the year, we should be seeing that overall improvement.
Now, if you'd like to review the data, Marissa already mentioned it in her report. You can find the link in the story, on her story right now on wave3.com. Sometimes we do get some breaking news I want to share with you folks. So I'm getting this in at around 8:35 this evening. The Associated Press confirming President Trump is signing the bill to release the Jeffrey Epstein files. Of course, the pressure having mounted for months of resistance. And this week you saw the play out first with a vote in the House and then a very quick subsequent vote in the Senate. But tonight, the AP and multiple outlets confirming that President Trump has signed the bill to release the Jeffrey Epstein files. And we'll certainly break down what that all entails, just how soon that they might be released, something we'll break down much more in depth and detail for you tonight on Wave News at 11. Getting back to some stories here in our neck of the woods in Wave Country, Indiana State Police arresting a Jeffersonville man they say was driving impaired with a 1-month-old inside his car. This happened around 9:30 at night last Wednesday on I-265. Troopers saying Garrett Smolowski was speeding and he failed to yield to emergency vehicles working a crash. During the stop, troopers say 33-year-old Smolowski appeared to them to be impaired, and there was a 1-month-old in his back seat. The child was not hurt. They were given to a family member. Smolowski was taken to the Clark County Jail, facing several charges, including neglect of a dependent and operating while intoxicated. Staying in southern Indiana, the Floyd County Emergency Management Agency let us know sometime today their mass communication system was actually hacked. Their Code Red Alerts service was hit by a cybersecurity incident, but as of the check we had from this afternoon, they've since resolved it. They say no personal names or phone numbers were affected at all. EMA has shut down Code Red and says they're working to launch a new notification system. In the realm of local politics, As far as Louisville is concerned, Mayor Craig Greenberg announced a pretty ambitious legislative agenda for the 2026 session of Kentucky's General Assembly. There's an emphasis on money for economic development and a push for some new gun laws as some of the highlights in his priority bullet points there and his list. Wave News reporter David Mattingly finds some positive reactions for these agenda priorities from both political parties.
2 years ago, Mayor Greenberg got a big win from state lawmakers with an investment of $100 million in downtown development. And this year, he's asking for more money for downtown revitalization, more money to build a training center for first responders, money to improve recreational opportunities at Jefferson Memorial Forest, and money for what he calls a strategic investment in tournament-ready athletic facilities that would make Louisville a tourism sports destination. When asked how much Greenberg was actually requesting, he said, as much as possible. He is also supporting budget requests from others in the city.
For example, our partners and friends at University of Louisville have their own request as well, that we firmly support their efforts as well. So I'm hoping that together, hundreds of millions of dollars will once again be invested across our entire city in important projects that further our goals of making Louisville safer, stronger, and healthier.
Greenberg is also asking for funding for violence intervention efforts, and he's repeating an appeal for the state to give Louisville autonomy in making its own laws to prevent gun violence. State legislators on both sides of the aisle express optimism that significant appropriations for Louisville will be possible, but they're also trying to manage expectations. The $100 million sum from 2 years ago is a more difficult ask this time around. The state's economy is not as robust now as it was in 2024. David Mattingly, Wave News.
Appreciate you all joining us and sticking with us tonight on Wave News Extra. We're going to round out sort of on theme here as with our main signal, the main channel, folks tuning in to watch this broadcast of Wicked and, of course, the sequel coming out very soon for movie fans and musical fans. Well, both the lead actresses, the witches as it were, had a bit of magic behind their respective singing performances. So Hollywood entertainment reporter Rick Damigella introduces us to a singing coach behind some big screen musicals you may have been listening to very recently.
For Wicked fans, perhaps you should pay attention to this man behind the curtain.
I'm a vocal coach and I'm a voice teacher. So I really train people how to sing and speak. We do a lot of speaking too, but mostly singing.
Eric Vitro has worked with Ariana Grande for many years and began prepping her for the role of Glinda before she even auditioned.
For Wicked, Ariana really wanted it to sound authentic to what Glinda should sound like, which is pretty operatic. And she had not sung that way before. She had all the high notes. She already could sing them. Everyone knows she has those super high whistle register notes. And I've known her since she was about 13 years old, 13, 14. We've been working together. So I knew she had all the notes. But what this was all about, our working experience for Wicked, was about training her voice to sound more operatic, like a legit Broadway soprano.
The people come into our lives for a reason.
We worked for months together before the audition and then months after the audition once she got the part, just because she wanted it to be there at moment's notice. And I think she could probably still to this day wake up in the middle of the night and hit a high C like Linda because it's so in her voice now.
Because I knew you. Think of what we could do.
In Hollywood, I'm Rick Damigella.
A reminder, folks, that we're always updating those stories, breaking news sometimes when they do come in from the national wires. We'll upload some of the big breaking news on the main homepage here on wave3.com. But of course, you can also see our original reporting on local stories, breaking news, investigations, everything, under the sun you could think of that we always have updated thanks to our awesome digital team. They will have that updated for you. And we're also working into the night. Should anything happen, get that information and share it with you as push alerts to your phones through the Wave News and Wave Weather app, and working, of course, on our regular newscast that's going to be on a little later. So once the movie wraps up, we'll be ready to share our reports as we wrap up tonight on this Wednesday, the 19th. And of course, this little bit of a lull from the rain we witnessed on Tuesday. What's in store for us to round out the week? Chief Meteorologist Kevin Harned going to walk us through bit by bit just to be as prepared as possible. We do appreciate your time, folks, whether that's on the Wave Now app on your smart TV devices or streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and X. Always appreciate connecting with you all. I'm Jose Sosaya. We'll be back with much more Wave News Extra tomorrow night at 8:05.